We have an illustrious C-suite roundtable for you today, and we will be discussing how we can prepare for the digital age. For this roundtable, I will be asking our moderator. He's a gentleman with 2 decades of experience working with corporate and non-profits. He has hands-on experience of managing and growing diverse businesses. He is a leadership trainer, a strategy consultant, a business coach, a serial entrepreneur. I am very comfortable in handing you over to the very capable Mr. Umar Khan.
We have, and what we have tried to do is to bring in an ensemble of different functions and C-level executives who manage different functions within an organization. And I have the pleasure of inviting somebody who has been at the heart of the digital journey of an organization which is driving the digital age in Pakistan. And he has served in different roles, including the Chief Business Officer, and currently he is the Chief Data and Strategy Officer for Jazz. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Ali Nasir. Thank you, Ali. Now, when we talk about people who sit on this side of the table, we also want to include in these discussions individuals who represent organizations which have brought the digital to us globally. An organization which itself suffered from the 80s, 90s, the change. Famous book, if anybody has read, Making Elephants Dance. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of inviting the GM, IBM Pakistan, my very good friend and my university mate, Asif. Thank you very much, Asif. Please join us on the stage. Last but not least, the gentleman you saw on the stage just a while ago, and I've kept him for the last because ये सारी strategies तो बनती रहती हैं, ये सारी चीज़ें तो होती हैं, लेकिन at the end, जिस वक्त जिसको कहा जाता है कि हमने ये बना लिया है, अपने लोगों को दौड़ाना भी है. अब अपने घोड़ों को इसी कोर्स पे आपने काम भी कराना है. And you have to be the enabler for this change to happen. And I'm indebted to Usman for sharing that slide which you said that it is the culture which drives that transformation. That is the key, the behavior. We can come up with whatever we do, but it is the strategy for the culture which will change that. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to our guru, mentor, and our very own Jamal Nasir. Sir, the CHRO for HBL, sir. Thank you very much. Now, in the true spirit of Connex, while the ladies and the gentlemen, is there a question, please? Or I thought somebody said something. So while the panelists on the stage get to know each other, we haven't had a chance to talk to each other. So please use this opportunity for 2 minutes to say hello to each other. I'm going to request the audience to sign in to the Slido again, if you already haven't, please. And maybe you can publish question here. So what we have done is, rather than preparing or asking questions and then coming to you, कि आप क्या जानना चाहते हैं, we are starting the panel from that. We have shortlisted a few dilemmas, questions on the stage. I'm going to move my chair anyhow because other than the picture, which I'm going to be very proud of, I'm not going to be using this chair. Maybe you can see. So what you can do is that you can go through these questions and take 2 minutes to vote which do you want first. So starting from एक डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन एक रिलेटिवली ट्रेडिशनल या नॉन डिजिटल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में कैसे किक स्टार्ट की जा सकती, टू रीस्किलिंग की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो एचआर में कौन सी टॉप 3-4 स्किल्स होनी चाहिए, व्हाट मैक्रो ट्रेंड्स आर शेपिंग एचआर एज अ फंक्शन एंड हाउ, एंड मे बी मरियम वी कैन सी अदर क्वेश्चंस एज वेल. All right, please look in your mobile, scroll through, find whichever questions you feel are the most relevant. And I will request the panelists that while we focus on these and we get the results, please feel free to think of the stories and the conflicts and the arguments that you've had in the boardroom. coming up with these, because we would love to hear personal stories, real life lessons that you have learned during the course of this change that you have driven. All right, I love this topic here. Work from home versus, say, if a company wants to allow X work from home, how do you go about? Everybody talks about it, but do you really want to do it? I mean, is it practical? Are organizations coming back to it or totally doing it? How do organizations change? You know, big organizations which want to bring digital products into the market, compete with the agile startups. What transformations they need to do to be, you know, competitive enough to survive in that? What do we do with an organization like HBL, which is probably one of the biggest employers in the country? We want to bring HBL Connect and survive the change. How does that come into play? So if we can have the answers here, Ji, I'm on the right and the left, I can see you, not on the central screen. Okay. Future of work seems to be leading. ये कहीं पहले सवाल तो नहीं था, पहले कोई क्लिक कर दिया आपने. And you can do multiple questions for that, right? So we can, we're going to give you 1 more minute, please. So I can see this continuously changing, and then we're going to answer. Hadia, have you answered, please? What do you want to ask your boss? Okay. Right. All right. So while these questions keep changing, you know, the first question that I see, and ladies and gentlemen, what we will do is that this is a question that is probably relevant to every one of you, and you know, you can make your pick who you would want to go first. But the question that I see on the top is that we talk a lot about future of work. And you, as your different roles within the organization, you, sir, leading the HR, and you leading different functions, and your expectations from the HR, yeah, of how do you want them to be the enabler, ma'am, as well, not just sir. When we talk about reskilling, what are the top 3 to 4 skills that HR professionals need to learn moving forward? What do you feel? Yeah, Asif, why not?
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Right, thank you very much, Umar. Now, you know, this question comes up quite often whenever we are interacting with our workforce, irrespective of which business function they belong to. Everybody wants to know, with all this digital transformation, with you know, changing models, how the workforce of future would look like. तो और उसमें लोगों की बड़ी apprehensions होती हैं at times कि probably their jobs, their roles are you know, they will be finished, they will be replaced by technology. And also I want to address this elephant, the elephant in the room first. So जितने बड़े data analytics platforms हैं, World Economic Forum हो, IBM Business Value Center हो, Gartner ho, if you study any of these platforms, you will see, first of all, even when we are expecting a slowdown in economy, jobs increase, net jobs are increasing. When it comes to a specific question of what skills and specific to HR function that people need to develop, I would say number 1 that you need to understand is technology integration. Technology does not know the business domain. Please keep that in mind. If we want to bring technology into HR, we need people from HR to tell us how this technology needs to be implemented. So technology integration, I would say, is the first and the foremost where all of you, especially the HR practitioners, need to focus, right? Moving on, I would say ESG. There's a global drive in adopting to greener technologies and greener practices and greener roles. That is something HR professionals need to understand, what role are they going to be playing when it comes to sustainability and ESG. Moving on, I would say culture बड़ा different होने वाला है, because जिस workforce से आप लोग deal कर रहे होंगे in coming few years, that's Gen Z. And Gen Z is digitally native. generation. They are more comfortable working with technologies like automation, like bots, like artificial intelligence than otherwise. So ये दो तीन मेरे ख्याल से top skills हैं where HR professionals need to focus and develop their core competence. So.
Right. Lee.
Thank you, Asif. I think you've said it all, but let me add a slightly different dimension to the question, Omar. And I'm sure a lot of the professionals here would have heard of the term VUCA, V-U-C-A. If you haven't, I'll just briefly explain. It's a term that came up in literature in sort of the 80s and 90s, and basically talked about strategy in a wartime thing. And VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? We live in VUCA times now. I think Asif alluded to that the speed and the nature of the change is so dynamic that it is no longer possible to be able to predict. So the first statement that I will put out there is this is happening, whether we like it or not, and you just have to find the best way to deal with it. In terms of how do we deal with it as HR professionals and as business executives, I think VUCA की एक और translation मैं propose करूँगा, which is vision and values, understanding, clarity, and agility. So while, yes, we have those four issues that we have to deal with, I think there is a solution to all four of them. And if I repeat what I just said, which is vision and values, understanding, clarity, and agility, HR has a central role in making sure that your organization, as well as your people, are equipped to handle that. So for me, digitalization or digital transformation is actually a unique opportunity for the HR function to actually gain center space that at times seems to have been sort of put on the periphery. Because people think that automation processes, payroll is putting the HR business out of business. I actually think it's the complete opposite.
Wonderful. So understanding, clarity, and agility. All right. Jamal sir?
Can I just add a couple? I think a lot's been said, but two things I'd like to add. One, as far as the HR professionals are concerned, first thing I think is very important is understanding being able to map and understand the employee journey. That's exceedingly critical. And once you've been able to understand and analyze the employee journeys, is being able to simplify it. And wherever the touch points are, either through automation or through digitization or other means, it's really making that experience for the employees very seamless and quick. So that's a skill that they need to understand. The second piece around with what the other gentleman also said is what's going to be and is very critical is being able to manage change. Is how do you drive change in organizations? And I think it becomes even more important and complex and challenging in large organizations who've been around for some time. If you're a startup, you have 17 people, it's relatively easier to drive. But when you're 20,000 people, it becomes more difficult. But unless we are able to drive and HR is able to lead from the front and drive that kind of change which is required, you can't get to where you're trying to go.
Ali, what Ali said was exactly how do you drive the change is by understanding, having clarity, and then creating a culture which is agile. And I'm going to come to a follow-up question about agility to you, Ali, in a bit, but I want to hear what Ruhi has to say.
Yeah, just building upon what the esteemed panelists have said, I felt that employee engagement is, although a core function, already a core function of HR, but as the organizations are growing and with digitization, and also with the hybrid work environment that we have now, post-COVID, employee engagement is something which we tend to lose focus of, and when the HR loses touch with the employees, then to keep them motivated, engaged, and pushing them for the organization's goals becomes a challenge. So I feel that employee engagement is also a key that a skill that they continuously have to build.
Thank you so much. So employee engagement, and how do you engage employees in this hybrid, something that they need to learn. So I'm going to move here to the audience and try to see if I can take a question, involve them in this discussion a bit. ये पहला तो starting question था, तो आप लोगों ने passively answer कर दिया, ठीक है? Now I really want you to start wearing your C hats, ठीक है? And think about it, that if a question like this arises in your boardroom, how do you feel different departments will respond to that, or what will be your take, right? So I'm going to go to a follow-up. Ali, आपने agility की बात की, तो I thought there was a question there in this, उस पे मैं आ जाता हूँ. Organizations all want to digitize. Okay. So we have two service providers in a way that enable, we have two organizations which telco in a way was always technology, but now we are hearing techco and digital organizations for jazz, and I am privy to the new strategy and the the digital strategy and all of that with jazz as well. But how do you, in a boardroom, when you are looking to decide कि मैंने एक organization की बिल्कुल DNA change कर देनी है. I have 3,000 plus people in my team who have been thoroughbred in doing A very, very well. Now I am going to create B, C, D, E, F. And I want my entire HR to transform trying to deliver that B, C, D, E, F. And agility is the key to be able to do that. But how do you tackle that challenge in a boardroom? I mean, what are the thoughts that are in your mind when you address something like this?
Thank you, Umar. So for starters, there's going to be blood on the floor.
Okay.
That's never that easy. Actually, we went through, and I'll take you through a 1-minute journey of what Jazz went through. So there are 3 elements to this digital journey. There's digitization, there's digitalization, and there's digital transformation. And I'll try and explain the difference. And we went through all 3. Digitization is essentially, जो उस्मान ने पहले बात की, कि you've got tons of data, Excel sheets, they're in a structured form somewhere in the organization. Somebody for the last 15 years is dealing with that Excel sheet coming into their inbox every day. They know how to read that data, and they know what the number at the end of that Excel sheet means. Life is good. You bring in digitization, and those numbers are now automated. And that's what it is. It doesn't really generate any insights. Once you start generating insights from those data dumps is when you start to digitalize. And the digital transformation bit happens when those insights start to drive the business. And business decisions are now made based on insights generated by data. So Jazz started on this journey around 2016, where when I joined the company in 16, जो आपकी claims form होते हैं, that was manual. So if I went into a Connex in Lahore, I went back, I took out a form from HR, filled out कि मैं किस hotel में रहा, उसके bill attach किए, staple किए, गुम जाते थे, etc., etc. So digitization was, we created an app on a portal, and now I could take a picture of the bill and upload it and get the claims, right? That's digitization. That was the easy bit. No harm done, no people lost their jobs, largely okay. Digitalization is when those insights through analytics and data started to, and I think Jamal Saab mentioned this, where somebody said, oh, ye to ab meri job kar rahi hai, process ya product. And that's when they started to create resistance in the organization. There's always in change winners and losers. And obviously the losers started to say, yeah, hold on, how can we try and undermine this effort? And this is when it first came to the boardroom. As a boardroom, my perspectives very clear hote hain. We have a CFO, we have myself in strategy, but I've been in commercial. Jamal Saab is commercial HR, and Asif, of course, general manager. CFOs always, the first thing they look at is costs. That's their job. HR looks at how easy or difficult it will be for me to sell this to the internal organization. The CMO says, I really don't care as long as my sales don't plummet. So they kind of distance themselves from that. CTO says, okay, before we start this, I'm going to need $100 or $1,000 worth of CapEx to buy the equipment, to run this. I will run it in proof of concept for 10 years, and then we'll figure out what needs to be done, right? So, and all those perspectives are hugely, hugely critical because they speak to different dimensions of this change. This change isn't happening in one part of an organization. It's happening throughout. And I think I'll finish on the point that the most successful transformations are those that look at the softer elements of the change and not the product and processes. And if good boardrooms can handle, and we struggled, I'll be honest. Jazz focused on the hard elements of the digital transformation, and we had to course correct maybe 3 months into that when we realized, and I think Rui raised that point and Jamal Saab, we weren't engaging our employees and customers enough. And there was that chasm was developing. So we had to course correct, and mashallah now I think we're happy where we are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to take us through that beautiful journey. And you said there will be bloodshed, some blood on the floor. So was it too intense in this journey, do you think? Was it simple, straightforward? Any insights into that? Because, you know, we on the other side, who are looking at the leadership team, we are just sometimes are confused. Why is this happening? What is happening? So, you know, what's exactly happening on the other side?
So I think इसमें एक बहुत critical role, दो चीजें होंगी. एक तो CEO का role बहुत critical है, because CEO is the arbiter. You know, there's first among equals. And if a CEO sees and gives equal value and weight to the different opinions in the room, they will arrive by consensus, and not everyone has to agree. You can agree to disagree, but your cabinet decision का concept है कि एक दफा फैसला हो गया, to the external organization you go as one voice. The other thing is a political leadership team or political leadership team. When people are vying for roles and positions, it always creates, I think it just creates a complexity that you don't need. But if it's an apolitical leadership team, meaning that they're all behind that purpose, it's easier.
Thank you so much. And on a lighter note, even if you have that bloodshed, sometimes you can always sign up for a leadership and strategy retreat with me, and it can solve that. Right, Jamal Saab?
Can I let me add
the beautiful story of HPL.
The practical challenge and an issue in terms of, you know, what we go through on a daily basis, and, you know, maybe a little bit around, you know, the roles that need to be played. But let me give you just a little, I'll just take, you know, 20 seconds to give you context. As an institution and as an organization, HBL, we're now 80 years old. And when we celebrated our 75th year anniversary 5 years back, we had 12 million customers. So it took us 75 years to get to 12 million customers. Last year, we ended at 36 million. And we expect and hope to be at 60 million in the next 3 years. So that's the pace and rate of change that this organization's had. We have not at all changed our branch network, which stays at around 1,700 odd branches across Pakistan. So all of this happened through digitalization. And the reason we were able to do this is we've been investing extremely heavily on technology. And the board has been extremely committed to investing very heavily. Now the board then turns around and asks us, saying, we've been investing very heavily on technology over the last 7, 8 years. Where is the efficiency? You come back to us every year, you say your customers are growing so fast, so you want X, you know, number of headcount more every year, and that adds to the cost and it adds to your base. So how do you work with these two dilemmas? And the other piece I'll tell you is, and that's something that happens on a yearly basis, and you know, especially finance, you know, is exactly what I'm talking about. But when we go through our budgeting process, and which is around this time of the year, last year when we went through the budgeting process, you tell all the businesses, saying, okay, so what's required for you to deliver your objectives and targets for the following year? They come back and saying, oh, we're going to grow our businesses by X, and our transactional volumes normally grow by 50, 60% year on year. And so last year, you know, when they all came back, when we aggregated everything, they said, no, we're an organization which was, you know, starting this year, we were at around 17,000 people in Pakistan. Then we have around 1,000 outside Pakistan as well. So on a base of 17,000, they came back and said, we need 5,000 more people. And we said, look, this doesn't compute, it can't make sense, you know, it just doesn't make sense. You know, we're trying to pivot to a technology company with a banking license, and so that won't work. So we're saying we're going with a flat headcount. Then we go to the board, we present that, and the board says nothing doing. You know, we've been investing so heavily, so where are the efficiencies? So we say, okay, we're going to reduce. And so our second quarter, you know, mashallah, was a record in the history of the bank. Third quarter is not looking too bad either. And the number of people we have in our bank today is 1,000 less than what we had in January. Now, how did that happen? The way that happened is working with the businesses and forcing and encouraging to look at different ways of doing things. Stopping doing a lot of stuff. Seeing where we're required to put in bots, for example. There's a lot of robotics process automation we're putting through the organization. And that's starting to show a lot of results. We piloted the first robotic process automation in HBL and HR. I raised my hand and said, let's do it here, let's show to everyone that this works. And when we establish that, then we can go out there and do it. So that's really where we are. Now next year, the budgeting process, you know, we come at least not 5,000, now they're asking for 2,000. We're going to reduce more next year. And it's not about letting people go. It's about not replacing a lot of the individuals who move on. You know, as an organization, we hire roughly 3,000 odd people every year. Out of the 3,000, we'll only hire back 2,000, if not 3,000. And that's really how we're funding our ability to grow the organization and continue to invest in digitalization and in technology. And HR has to play that role to work with the businesses. Because when you go bottoms up, budgeting process, you know, it just doesn't add up. So that's the role everyone's got to have to play, is understanding the tools and techniques available out there and really pushing the digitalization agenda. I'm the champion in HR for robotic process automation. I'm in HR, but I think it's my responsibility to drive that change and thought process in the organization. So that's a real-time dilemma that we need to deal with. Left to itself, you will not get there. So you got to push hard.
Thank you. There was a question there, Ji Ruhi, I'm going to come to you, which talked about finding the framework and finding a criteria. So you as a CFO, when you are given this choice of represent systems here, systems ki khud apni journey hai. It's a digital enabler, but it was a tradition. One of the earliest in Pakistan, and there is a lot that has changed. So I'm sure there's a lot of transformation question that is required at systems as well. So, आपके पास जब board में सवाल आता है कि this project needs to be done or we need to invest in digitization to digitalization, what is the kind of criteria you look for? How do you answer stability versus long-term investment question there?
देखिए, when you are evaluating digitization or digitalization projects, the evaluation is always between cost and the long-term savings or efficiencies that the project is going to bring in to the system. So throughout, for any projects that we are doing internally for our organization as well, externally for customers too, the pitch is always that, yes, there is an upfront investment, but the return on investment for this digitization is much higher. A lot of questions usually come, and this analysis is always considered for Pakistan as well, because we have cheaper labor force here. The cost of labor is much cheaper than the upfront investments that you have to make for digitization, for licenses that you have to get. But at the same time, the long-term objectives that you have to achieve, all the organizations that have to scale to a certain level, digitization is the key, automation of processes is the key. Because at a certain scale, and you mentioned that system is one of the earliest organizations in Pakistan. We started off in 1977. It's been a long journey, but how things, the growth trajectory has been suddenly high post-COVID. So post-2020, 2019, 2020, the organization is towards the upward trajectory at a very fast pace. And the secret to this is agility and transformation within the organization as well. And that's why I mentioned employee engagement, because I felt has been the key objective of our HR professionals to keep the employees engaged through this change management journey. 5 years ago, we were 1,000 resources. Now we are 6,500 resources. So, you know, for our board of directors, the decision-making factor is the return of investment than the upfront cost.
Okay. And do you give these works to? How do you have a clear framework generally? यार ये वाला project जो है doesn't really have a direct short-term ROI, but for HR wants to digitize recruitment for something, put in a software, a system to help HR. How do you know, is there a more of a concrete framework that you use, or you have these discussions to deep dive and understand the benefits?
Yeah,
of that?
there is a broad framework as well, but the discussions always, you know, we have to do a deep dive in terms of cost-benefit analysis and the objectives that the organization wants to achieve.
Okay, lovely, lovely. So every organization will love to have a CFO who gives them a bit, you know, more of their ear and listen to what they need to do. I think that's what we need. Thank you so much, Ruhi. Ladies and gentlemen, are you enjoying the panel so far? Yes, no, yes? So we need a big round of applause because I also need to take 5 more minutes for that, right? If you don't give me a big round of applause, they're going to tell me to stop. So do I have a bigger round of applause? Yes, no, yes? There you are. Thank you so much. I believe I deserve my extra 5 minutes, not my extra, my original 5 minutes, right? Now, Asif, you as an enabler again from IBM, move around. यहाँ पे बातें तो बहुत हो रही हैं. हम कह रहे हैं catching up with or getting ready or catching up with the digital age. You go along with you know, the systems team and now the Jazz team as business solution provider as well. Move around the boards of the country. And आपको क्या लगता है? Do you think that the mindset is there? We talk about digitization. लेकिन जितनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से आप बात करते हैं, are there words or their actions behind the words they speak? Do you feel that the industry is ready to accept it at the rate it should?
Omar, this is a very interesting question. So, and I would want to keep things in context of HR function and HR transformations to make it more relevant to the audience who are here today with us. So, absolutely the appetite is there. The vision is there. Most of the board rooms where I've presented or represented IBM, I clearly see a drive, a vision, an appetite for experimentation, for digitalization, as well as digitization, for adapting new technologies. The key thing, the key factor is that jo bhi aapka objective hai for whatever you want to bring that change has to be worthy of the effort and the pain, because change is the only constant and it's a painful one. I've experienced it in my own organizations. I've seen multiple various customers that we deal with going through these changes. Change is the only constant and is painful at times. The objective of that change has to be greater than the effort and the pain that you need to go through, number one. Number two, you need to have a strong, extremely effective communication channels, engagement channels available in the DNA or the structure of your organization to communicate that bigger objective and why you are pursuing something like that to the masses. When you have people believe in that change, whichever change the boardroom is trying to drive, things become easy. And trust me, change, especially because मेरा अपना ताल्लुक technology से है, and we have a lot of good partners, including systems. I work with them. I know they're all driving and supporting customers and helping them. I have 2 of my customers sitting on each side of me. But we need to keep in mind that जो driver technology की जब हम बात करते हैं, technology is an enabler. एक objective होता है आपका which drives the change. Technology is an enabler. Technology does not mean that we'll have to reduce jobs or we'll make it that painful of laying off people. मैं अभी जमाल साहब की बात सुन रहा था. He was talking about bots and automation. On a lighter note, and I want to share with all of you, especially our HR friends here in this room, it reminds me of an article that I read, I think it was on Wall Street, a couple of years ago actually, it's not a recent one. And there was a very interesting conversation and argument in that article. So it argued that since a lot of work that previously humans used to do or employees used to do is being transferred to the bots, and the bots don't pay income tax. It is a problem for HR folks to realize that, you know, your repetitive task, mundane task, agar wo chale bhi jate hain technology mein, you will have the bandwidth to address these issues. You will have the bandwidth to address a syndrome that we just experienced a year and a half ago, which was called the Great Resignation. Guys, it was real. I think it was millions of resignations in the month of September 21 and then October, and it was noted that American history or world history mein itne zyada jisko Great Resignation Syndrome kaha gaya. So again, there are a lot of interesting problems that our workforce, I tell you another fact. I think this was by Gartner. Every function in every organization, including HR, usually they did some analysis and they found out that on an average across industries and across geographies, approximately 0.74% of the revenue is what goes to the HR function. Or you can say 1.5, 1.6% of your operating expense is what comes from HR. So that is going to remain there. No report which is published in 2023 expects any reduction in the jobs, whereas the change is coming in a big way. So we need to adapt it as it comes. We need to have a strong story. We need to make people realize and believe in whatever change we are going to drive. And
I love that, Asif. Thank you. The objective has to be bigger than the pain. And as long as that is clear, people will adopt that, and you need organizations to do that. Just on a parting question, Ji. Very important, and we'll need a quick 60-90 second thought on that. हमने यहाँ पे सवाल देखा था work from home के ऊपर, और हमने कहा कि जी इस डिजिटल एज को जब कैच अप कर रहे हैं और हम स्टार्टअप्स के साथ मुकाबला भी कर रहे हैं टैलेंट के लिए, so how do we manage that question? A very quick one on that is work from home. Does that work in each of your organizations? Is it possible? Do we need to revert to it? Do we need to come back from it? How do we ask that question, and how do we calculate the benefit of doing, not doing it? This is a question that the Gen Z is asking.
Okay, let me take a first shot at this. Look, it works. It works in certain roles, and I think that's what you need to understand. It's not going to work across. It depends on the nature of the industry. We're a service industry. We have branches. We have customers who walk in by the hundreds of thousands every day. We have to be out there. But a number of our software developers work from home. Some of my team members work from home 2 days a week. If it's doable, absolutely. The challenge for HR is ensuring that we train our line managers to assess people on the contribution and output the individuals make rather than physically being in office. And I think that's a mindset change which takes a little bit of time to get over. COVID helped. But there's still a long way to go.
So Jamal sir, thank you so much for that, and I'll probably say that to the rest of the panelists. करते हैं और work from home शुरू करते हैं कुछ जगहों के लिए, तो फिर कुछ ऐसे roles होते हैं जिस पे work from home possible नहीं होता. So is the HR then going to start incentivizing those roles as well and giving them allowances? I mean, sales team, your cashiers, they can't do that. And while you have 50% of your other people doing work from home. So how do you manage that as well? How do you manage that dilemma as well? So, Ali.
I'll tell you how we manage that, Omar, but let me start off by saying I am never, ever going to work for a company that requires me to come to work 5 days a week.
Okay.
That's never going to happen. So work from home is here to stay. Yes, there are jobs that cannot be work from home. If an air traffic controller called up the boss and said, Kiji, I've decided today I'm going to work from home, that's not going to work. Okay, so every organization has those roles, and that's par for the course. I think the important thing here, and this is where I think we've struggled as an organization, work from home is if you like, it's an opportunity to do better. Sadly, and I'll use Pakistan ka example, I don't think the employees have done their bit in exercising faithfully what work from home means. Work from home to a lot of people means आज मैं अपने बिल दे सकता हूँ, आज मैं बच्चों का ख्याल रख सकता हूँ, हाँ एक आध जूम मीटिंग है मैं कर लूँगा. And we've had to calibrate between that desire to be empowering to our employees, which I think is the right thing. So we have mandatory, Fridays are mandatory work from home. And one additional day you can take work from home. So that's essentially you're coming to work 3 days a week. And that's now nothing to do with COVID, nothing to do with anything else. However, I think employees need to step up also and treat work from home as work from home.
Thank you so much, Ali. You mentioned that you had a debate in the board recently. Now we know which side you stood. That debate. Asif and Ruhi, quick, please.
On work from home, see, partial work from home is good. I have a different opinion on work from home. I think work from home, we at IBM didn't start after COVID. So we've been doing it for 2 decades, right? So we have a huge workforce. And not for the last 2-3 years, for 15-20 years, who have never come to an IBM office. Globally, मैं बात कर रहा हूँ. So it was never new for us. We had all the infrastructure, we were all set. So it was business as usual. Having said that, एक work from home का एक बहुत बड़ा benefit है. And again, I want to keep every comment in the right context of our HR colleagues and HR function. So talent के लिए, अगर मेरे पास पाकिस्तान में सिर्फ 3 जगहों पे ऑफिस है, and if I want everyone to come to the office, I lose on a great talent sitting in Multan. I lose on talent sitting in Jhelum, in Sakhar, and in Badin, right? So, ये एक है हमारा अपना likeness, dislikeness. I'll put it aside. I prefer to be in office. And then there are actual specific benefits, pros and cons, right? So, talent के लिहाज से work from home is an amazing thing, right? I would call it remote working. Right? So you get the best talent from everywhere. एक साइड जो मुझे थोड़ी सी प्रॉब्लमेटिक लगी, स्पेशली इन कोविड, जो मेरा अपना पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस है, जब लोगों ने, स्पेशली उन लोगों ने जिन्होंने कोविड पीरियड में ज्वाइन किया एंड दे वर वर्किंग फ्रॉम होम, दे ज्वाइन टीम्स, दे डिडंट ज्वाइन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. मेरे ख्याल से एरिस्टोटल ने कहा था कि होल इज ग्रेटर देन सम ऑफ इट्स पार्ट्स, राइट? सो an organization itself, the whole environment, the culture is far bigger than teams and what you've been hired for, what you're doing. मुझे लगता है कि उस साइड पे it takes a toll. But जिस तरह अली ने कहा, as long as it's hybrid, people come, interact, who can. Of course, someone probably, if we get someone on board from Gilgit, he may or she may not be able to come to office frequently, and that's acceptable. We are getting the best talent.
Asif, thank you very much. I think your point ties in very well with what Ruhi said as well, and what others said, that engagement is the name of the game right now. While work from home is here to stay, we have to be agile enough to find ways of how we will keep the employees engaged despite these challenges. Otherwise, organizations have come to me and said कि हमारे नए लोग आते हैं और वही कोविड टाइम में, और जो इनफॉर्मल कॉन्वर्सेशन से उनको अपनी पूरी कैरियर मैपिंग पता चल जाती होती थी, 1 साल के बाद they are totally nowhere in understanding where they will lead to. So these challenges have to be addressed in an engaging way. Your thoughts?
Ji, I will just add upon what they have already shared. कि work from home or remote working, complete 100% work from home, I don't think it works for the organizations again, because you lose on the engagement bit and the connection between the employees and the teams. So mostly organizations